And welcome back, fourth and long fans. It's your AFL correspondent, Coach Donnie Hess here with another interview in my series going through finding AFL club fans throughout the states here. And today we got Mr. Patrick Graithwaite all the way out in California. Patrick, how are you doing, sir?
Doing good, Donnie. You?
I am not doing too bad, sir. Unfortunately, I don't have the luxury of Southern California weather here with a nice little snowstorm coming in. But we won't focus on that too much. I like getting to know the people I'm interviewing a little bit, just so then everybody can kind of find out just kind of personally outside the game of footy. So that's kind of your story, sir.
So born and raised here in Southern California. I'm 52 years old. Got three beautiful kids, 25, 21, and 19. They're all doing their college thing. So kind of an empty nester here in Southern California, just enjoying the weather and any sport that I can get my hands on. Fortunately, I got to play a few years of footy before I got too old and crippled. So it's fun to be able to talk about a game that not a lot of people know about. So I'm excited to meet you and talk about the great game of footy.
Awesome, awesome. So you might have tipped your hand here. So how did you find footy? Was it the fact that you started playing it, or did you find it online? Kind of what's your story of how did you
Well,
find footy?
I remember watching a little bit, when it would be on as a
Mm-hmm.
kid and not even knowing what was going on. I mean, maybe even young adult, but they used to play. I don't even remember what station out here, but every once in a while you'd catch a game, randomly at some weird time in the day, and just loved kind of watching it. Then didn't understand the scoring or anything, and then a real good buddy of mine, Darren Lean, he got on a team that was forming here in Riverside, and with a couple of Aussie guys that started the team. And he played for a few years before I came over and started playing. But that's basically how I got to be, actually playing and getting to be a huge fan.
Great, great. That's always nice. I know everybody's kind of got a different story, whether it's YouTube, different stuff like that. So it's always interesting to hear kind of the different stories of how people here in the States find footy. So the people that are watching the YouTube video might kind of already see, but and for those who are just on the podcast, who's your AFL club?
Hawthorn Hawks.
The mighty Hawks, one of the great dynasties there in the late teens and in the two
Yeah.
thousands here. So definitely a strong club there. So I got to ask, I love finding out different fandoms, how everybody's kind of different fans of their club. So how would you describe your fandom to the Hawks? Are you one of those you get up early to watch the games live, or do you watch them on the Watch AFL app and just watch them on tape delayed later to where you don't have to worry about the commercials? So what's kind of your story on your fandom of the Hawthorn Hawks?
All of the above. I'll check out what games are going to be played on the local stations or ESPN or wherever they're playing them. If there's a Hawks game on, well, I'll record them all. And then when there's a Hawks game, I'll get to go back. Or if I can catch it live, I definitely do. I watch a little bit. I like to watch some kind of the highlights on YouTube and stuff like that, just to kind of catch up with what's going on. But I record them all that I can, and then go back and watch them when I can. So I mean, I'm a huge fan of the Hawks, but I'll watch just about any two teams play, because there's a lot of teams I root against too. So
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. All those rivalries down in Victoria breeds a lot of contempt for some
yeah.
teams. So,
And
so
I think your big team is one of my biggest rivalries, those Swannies.
yeah, for the longest period of time there, for about a 5 or 6 year span, it seemed like those two just always found a way to meet up with each other, and
Oh yeah,
they were always good games. It's one of those. It's like as much as you may not like them, you respect them because there's
sure.
always such a good game. Like you have the 2012 grand final the Swans win, and the 2014 grand final that Hawthorn ends out
Mm-hmm.
winning. And so you had a lot of really good games between those two clubs. And I've always respected Hawthorn just because Clarko is one of the best coaches in
Yeah,
all, and he just always seems to find a way to get a Hawthorn team that maybe not the most talented team in the world, but they always played really good team footy. So they were always so much
yeah.
fun to
He's he's
watch.
he's he's a great coach.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
it definitely one of those guys you admire. So going off of that, huge fan. So I got to ask, who's your favorite current Hawk? And then have you dove into the history of the long, rich history of the Hawks? And do you have any old timey Hawks that are your favorites?
Um, right now, I like watching Isaac Hayes.
Hmm.
He's one of the ones that was around, back in the late teens, and he's still out there kicking it. And that guy's amazing to watch. He can run forever.
Hmm.
I could never play that way, but that guy can run forever. Obviously, Buddy Franklin. He was the big man on campus there when I started watching and becoming a fan. Um, Sam Mitchell, who was around, he was the midi there for a long time when they were winning. And that guy, I've never seen anybody move a ball like that guy.
Hmm.
I have a little bit interesting thing. I remember reading that actually the Hawthorn Hawks were 1 year they were called the Riverside Hawks.
Hmm.
And that's the town I live in now and grew up in. And so that was kind of a weird thing. My buddy Digo, who got me into this, he was a huge West Coast fan,
Hmm.
and so I couldn't pick them. Starting to watch it, religiously. So, yeah, I just kind of glommed onto the Hawks and just loved the way those guys moved the ball and played. I mean, I played soccer all my life and got to play in college and a little bit of pro, and the thing about going from soccer to footy, it's almost seamless. The way the game moves and the ball moves and the players move around. Obviously, a whole different talent, but yeah, it was something that attracted me, and I loved playing. I wish I could still play.
Yeah, I've noticed that a lot of the soccer players that I've talked with, their transition into the game is really seamless. That and basketball players are the two that I've seemed to notice really, really transition into the game really well. Because I think just the movement with
Yeah,
basketball and with soccer, it's the movement patterns and kind of knowing where you are, and then the field size is a little bit bigger, but I think it's a little bit more used to from a soccer player's transition from that. So going off that, huge Hawks fan. With this last season, not normally where the Hawks are used to being on the ladder normally. So I have to ask, kind of, what were your thoughts on this last season? Were you disappointed? Are you starting to see kind of the change of the guard from the old guard to kind of the newest? And kind of, what are your thoughts on last season, from your opinion?
yeah, it was a little bit of a bummer, because yeah, you usually see him in the playoffs playing for the flag. But I'm also a Atlanta Falcons fan, so I'm kind of used to that, kind of used to that, disappointing season. But they're still a fun team to watch. I mean, they were hot and cold. That's definitely how they were this year. There were some games that I got to watch where I couldn't. It didn't look like you a Hawks team at all. And then there were some games where they played phenomenal, and it was like, wow, this is So and like I said, I watch almost as many games as I can. So I just love watching those guys. Those guys are the most athletic uh, dudes on the earth, and it's amazing watching those guys play every week.
Yeah, they were one of several teams that seemed to have Jekyll and Hyde games. There'd be one
Yeah,
game where they're absolutely amazing, and then the next game they just don't have it. So, and I think when you beat Richmond earlier in the year, and it seems
yeah,
like they really got it, and then they had a couple of stumbling blocks against some of the lower teams on the ladder. That is just kind of, this was definitely a Hawks team that you could kind of tell that their age, some of the aging
yeah,
players, you could kind of tell it was their last leg. Definitely like Puopolo and some of those, like, I was not surprised they retired. It's sad to see greats go, but I was kind of shocked to see Burgoyne stay on. Normally, Clarko has been quite quick with the axe, for some of the older players. So, kind of thoughts on that? Are you happy that Burgoyne stays? Did you kind of think that maybe he should have stepped away or retired, or maybe went up to the Gold Coast?
yeah. It's hard because I really do. Shane Burgoyne he is a stud, and yeah, like you said, and Bruce seems to be slowing down a little bit, but yeah, it's a little tough because you want to see your heroes and the guys that you expect, play as long as they can. But yeah, then it gets to that point where it's kind of like, you see these new guys, there's so many new guys, ready to come in and just take over. And so I think that's probably what we'll see next year. A lot. I haven't got to see the draft because the draft just happened, right? Did we just
Yep.
do it?
Yep. It
Okay.
happened this week. Yep.
And not that I would know a ton about, the guys that they're playing, but it'll be fun to read about them and see, what they've got coming in. I would imagine that just being a Hawks team, you're gonna pull in some pretty talented guys that want to play for, a big club like that. So I'm looking forward to next year for sure.
Okay. And then kind of going from that, have you kept an eye on any of the off season, any of the trade deadline, free agency? I mean, you kind of said you hadn't been able to keep an eye on the draft. And once we're done answering this question, you got a couple of really good kids coming in this year. I can tell you
Oh,
about
do
here.
we?
Yeah. Oh yes, definitely. One that I'm kind of surprised isn't wearing Swans colors, but it ended up happening in the draft. Which actually was very helpful for the Hawks in the long run. But have you kept an eye on the free agency or the trade period at all?
No, not really. It's been kind of a hectic year. So once the season was over, well, especially for the Hawks, it was kind of like, oh boy,
Mm-hmm.
okay, let's take a break. But no, I did. I got to watch the grand final and stuff like that. We usually do. A lot of the guys that I played with before, we usually do a grand final party.
Mm-hmm.
So we all get together and still watch, whoever can. But obviously this year we weren't able to do it. So, but yeah, no, I really haven't. But I'm interested. Now I want to hear what you know.
Well, so I actually did watch the draft. I watched it a little bit of delayed since it started at 2 a.m. my time, live. But your first round draft pick, you ended up getting the number 5 pick because the number 1 overall pick actually was a next generation to the Western Bulldogs. But your first overall pick was actually a kid for the longest time. A lot of Swans fans thought they would get is a young key defender named Denver Granger Barras, DGB for short. Very, very good defensive marker, a lot like Jeremy McGovern from the West Coast Eagles. Reads the ball well, great intercept mark, great with it. He's a little undersized. He's a little he needs to put on a little weight. He's a little stick thin, but he'll definitely grow. He's 18 years old. It's going to happen.
Oh yeah.
And then kind of a really cool story is you had a Generation Academy named Connor Downey, who's actually half Chinese descendant, and he'd be the first ever player from the AFL of Chinese descent. So it's really, really cool story that there's a couple of kids there that I think a lot of Hawks fans are definitely going to be quite excited to see those two eventually wear the brown and gold. So.
All right. Oh, that sounds like fun.
Yeah, and what I can do is once we're done with this podcast, I can send you kind of their whole draft list of who they got both in the regular draft and then the rookie draft as well, if you'd like me to.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Okay, I will definitely get that to you. So we kind of talked about the off season. Now going from this is kind of the same issue with me is that I love watching women's footy. I've loved being able to be an advocate for women's footy, both here in the States and in Australia. Sadly, the Hawks do not have an AFLW team, but were you planning on keeping an eye on this upcoming AFLW season that starts here at the end of January? And if so, are you going to kind of pick a team or are you just kind of watch or not?
Well, I definitely want to watch. I have not yet, but I've seen how much it's growing, kind of like soccer did here in the U.S., over the last 10, 20 years.
Mm-hmm.
My youngest daughter, huge soccer player, plays goalkeeper. That kid could play any game, that's on this earth. And
Mm-hmm.
so I'm going to see if I can get her interested in watching and see if maybe one of the teams that's, locally around here might have a women's team that she could, play in the off season of soccer. So I think that would be really fun because that kid, so my youngest, she actually played high school football. And so she was the kicker and did the kickoff team and everything. So tough girl. So I think she could definitely hold her own in some footy. And she, when she was younger, she used to come out and watch, us play. And she's got a foot on her too. So yeah, I'll definitely make it a family thing to get together and watch a few of those games.
That's a cool little story, and definitely if you get a chance, if you get a chance to sit down with her and have her watch a game, watch the Western Bulldogs and Danny Marshall, who is a USA AFL product. She actually played for the Arizona Outlaws before she moved over to Melbourne. So, kind of a
Okay.
fun little story there that you'd be able to say, hey, there's an American who played here in the States and is now playing professionally over there. So that's kind of a cool little story if you want to kind of give her a reason to watch even more.
Oh yeah.
Um, so going off that, one of my favorite questions to ask most of these fans, just because I like hearing the differentiation of each of them, is favorite game you've ever seen. It doesn't have to be a Hawks game, but if it is, what's your favorite game you've ever seen? It didn't have to be live. It can even be tape delayed.
It would definitely be is either 13 or 14 grand final where they won. Well, I can't remember which one it was, but one of them came down to the wire. If I'm correct, it might have been a preliminary final game, but one of the Hawks games was just it was back and forth, and I remember just uh, more so than any other championship game I've ever watched. Just on the edge of the couch, standing up, yelling, running around, cheering, and at one point didn't think that we were going to pull it off, but we did. So that was one of my favorites. That one I didn't happen to be watching with anybody for some reason. We didn't have a party back then, but I remember being in my living room just going nuts.
Yeah, and so many of them are awesome. And it's like, and I know 2014 when Hawthorn beat Sydney, that was kind of a rollover game. Sydney just did not play very well in that second quarter, and kind of Hawthorn kind of rolled it up on them. And I had a friend who was a huge Hawks fan on my team. We were watching that grand final, and he was kind of messing with me a little bit since he knew I was a Sydney fan. So I'm used to it, and it's so much fun. But like I said, I respect the Hawthorn Hawks. It's a great football team. I know if you ever get a chance on YouTube, I know the 1989 grand final with Hawthorn and Geelong is an amazingly good watch. It's interesting how brutal the game was at that time. You can definitely tell that the game has definitely changed since that time period. But if you ever get a chance on YouTube, that is a great watch, especially the Triple M recall, because it's absolutely comedy, because they have a guy who played for Geelong at the time calling the game as well, and he doesn't play so well, and they mess with him a lot in it. It is absolutely hilarious. It's a great listen. So
I'll look
so
that up. Yeah.
yeah, I can definitely I can link you that too in our messenger thing that we have. It's definitely fun to watch. But Patrick, this has been a great chat. Always great to find different footy fans, no matter where. So if you ever want to chat footy ever again, please reach out. I'd love to do that. If you want to, you can plug your social media, anything like that, in case you want to find some more Hawks fans that maybe are listening to this and would love to be able to communicate with you. If you want to take the time now to talk about any social media, floor is yours.
Yeah, just you can look me up on Facebook. I mean, that's most of the social media that I do. So Patrick Garthwaite, GARTHWAITE, and yeah, it's been fun because after I kind of hooked up with you, I've caught another some invites from other AFL fans or groups. So it's kind of cool. What I wanted to do too, Donnie, I wanted to show you these. These are a couple of the Guernseys that my buddy Darren, for our team here in Riverside.
Mm-hmm.
So that's our bell right there, and that was
That's
when we were
awesome.
the Riverside Rangers, and then this was the Riverside War Dogs, which is kind of cool.
Awesome.
Yeah,
Those are nice.
yeah, he took this game very seriously. He did a lot of traveling and stuff before I joined, and he's the one that got me in it. So all my praises to Darren and you, Donnie, for spreading the word. It's kind of nice.
Well, we try our best. The biggest thing that I think is that it's such a cool sport, and I think there's so much room for this to grow here in the States. I mean, it may never get to that professional ranking over here, but if we can start seeing more and more collegiate athletes finding a way to play the game, and then maybe finding their way over to Australia, any way we can help spread the game is for me. And I think just because of how much fun it is and such a group atmosphere and all these clubs. I mean, I think we've gotten to the point now where we all realize is that the more our clubs grow and get stronger, the better for the overall, both for the USAFL and for the AFL as well, because it only gives us more and more talent to pick from and all that. So I love meeting different fans. This has been absolutely amazing being able to chat with all of the different fans here, whether they're California, Arizona, New Hampshire. Like I said, I had the pleasure of talking with a very special guest. By the time this comes out, everybody will know that I got to talk with the great Peggy O'Neill, the Richmond Football Club president, who's originally from West Virginia. And it was an amazing conversation to be able to see that a woman from the States now with quite a nice role over in Australia, and her influence is amazing. So it's been so much fun. I can't wait to finish all of these. I've got several more that I'm still doing. Several I'm really excited to do, including one, the Essendon Bombers. She's got a podcast, and Miss Rosanna. I'm hoping to chat with her quite soon. So this has been an amazing opportunity. So I want to thank you again, Patrick. It's been awesome. Hopefully we chat again soon. Fourth and Long fans, this has been the end of the series. I hope everybody has a nice night.
Thanks, Donnie.
We'll catch you later.